Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit True Off My Chest and it's by user LessRoll4824. I think my kid's school lied about calling CPS rather than calling my husband to pick her up. Our daughter, 7, started school last month. I told the front office under no circumstance should they call me if something happens to her, especially Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I work, and I'm not allowed to have my phone on my person while working. They were told explicitly to call her father, who works overnight but is home all day as a result. I get to my lunch break today, and what do I find but 16 missed calls from the school? I assumed she's been hospitalized or there's been an active shooter, something horrible that warrants 16 calls to the parent they were told not to call. I called the school frantically before even looking at my voicemail and find that they called me because she threw up. Threw up. Blood? Nope. Regular throw up. But because I didn't answer, this woman considered it abandonment and made a call to CPS. I asked if they called my husband. Nope, just me. And I didn't answer, which isn't allowed. I called him and he went to pick her up. There was a woman sitting with her in the nurse's office who was also there during orientation night, but she wasn't our kid's teacher or administration, so we didn't get introduced to her. As soon as my husband got there, she scurried off, and when he asked the woman at the front desk who she was, she reiterated that she had called someone about your wife abandoning your daughter. She then told him if it happened again, it would be a lot more serious and we should consider making sure mom's always there when the kid needs her. There is no effing way that a CPS agent is just hanging around this school at all times and didn't bother to stick around to lecture a parent who abandoned their kid when they showed up. I think they lied because they don't like that dad is supposed to be their primary point of contact. I'm going to follow up with the principal when I've calmed down, of course, but what the actual F? Yeah, OP, I agree with you. Something's definitely not adding up. 16 calls to the parent that they were explicitly told not to contact and no attempt to call the dad, who in their file is designated as primary, and then the mysterious CPS figure who conveniently vanishes. Come on, give me a break. But the cherry on top is that comment they made to your husband about making sure mom's always there when her kid needs her. Yeah, if that's not a message, come on. Yeah, OP, you absolutely have to follow up on this, but bring receipts. Phone logs, missed calls, messages, what was said, who was present, all of it. Then push this up to the principal in the district if you have to, and even get CPS involved if needed. Because the last thing you need is, as I'm sure will be labeled a mistake or some sort of administrative error, to snowball into something bigger. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Frustrated Dill says, make sure it's well documented. They need to follow the communication orders you give them. They don't get to decide that the mother must answer. I'd threaten a lawsuit if they continue this behavior and make false CPS reports. And OP responds, it's all in writing and has been since we first started filling out the paperwork. If you mean the woman claiming she called CPS, unfortunately I only had that conversation over the phone call and not a text message. Intelligent Type 978 says, refusing to call the other parent because she didn't want to should be grounds for termination. Calling CPS claiming abandonment was a lie and that should also result in termination. As a mother, I won't judge you if you end up cussing her the F out. Hidden Cobalt says, oh hell no, your child has 2 parents. They have to be unable to reach both parents to claim abandonment, not just unwilling to call dad because misogyny. Mom should be available. What year is it? And this after you left clear specific instructions. Absolutely make the complaint. You're right, and this is ludicrous. Least Profession 3082 says, is it documented that you are unavailable for those 3 days, or is dad listed as the primary contact? And OP responds, both. It was all written down explicitly when we were filling everything out. He's the primary and I'm secondary with special instruction. Her grandmother is the emergency contact and also wasn't called. And Casanocic says CPS will provide you with a letter to document the investigation and then another letter to confirm that it was founded or if no evidence was found. You can call CPS to ask them to confirm if you're being investigated. If the school didn't exhaust all means of contact, CPS is way too overburdened to send someone to investigate this. Sounds like BS to scare you. And Opie responds, I'm almost positive it is. There's no way an actual CPS person wouldn't have at least spoken to my husband when he showed up, whether they really believed this was abandonment or not. Well, the community agrees that the school did everything wrong and OP needs to follow up. So let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Hi everyone, first off, thanks for everyone for their supportive comments, especially Beyond Beauty Katie for the email template. That was very nice, although I did start off by sending something less confrontational. To answer the most common questions, the school had documentation to call my husband or his mother ever since we enrolled there. I double-checked our computer portal with the school's website and it's still listed that way, including that I can't be contacted for anything that might be time sensitive. I cannot have my phone on my person while I'm working, period. My workplace has an automatic answering machine for public calls, so even if the school did call them, I wouldn't get the message for probably another half hour at absolute best. Even then, I work about 30 to 40 minutes away if traffic is good. Yes, I am in a more traditional area, although it's never been too huge of a deal before besides having to commute to the city for work. Okay, this is not going to be the super dramatic update I'm sure a lot of people were hoping for. Sorry? First off, I did not jump straight to getting an attorney to threaten them. I did call and ask a local family law firm, and the person I spoke to told me if we did have to go as far as suing, it would look better to try to exhaust options on my own before threatening legal action. But they would be happy to look over any communications between us and we could CC them on any emails and asked me to get any information on the potential neglect or abandonment case I could while they looked into it as well. I started by sending a follow-up email to the principal and CC'd the superintendent and law person on it asking for confirmation that they had checked our file for who to call. More details on who exactly was spoken to at CPS, any case numbers, and the name of the person who was sitting alone with my sick daughter and did not speak to my husband or identify themselves. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the principal was out of town for several days with some family emergency. After a day with no reply, the superintendent emailed me directly asking for more details, and I sent them an email outlining exactly what had happened from our perspective. Screenshots from my phone, my husband's phone, and his mother's phone, showing the phone calls and the lack of them. Monday, the principal finally got back to us and we got some answers. The woman sitting with our daughter was one of the school counselors, just not the one assigned to her. No one actually contacted CPS. There is no case opened against us. That was just a straight up lie. The woman who told me she had actually called the school's social worker, not CPS, who then sent the counselor to sit with her, instead of, telling her that was ridiculous or going himself. The counselor claims she was under the impression that she was just keeping our daughter company until the parents arrived, since there was no nurse that day. But if that was the case, she could have at least said hello, right? And I'm not sure if he was supposed to tell me this, but apparently this is not the first time they've had issues with how she responds to fathers or male caregivers in general, which I want to know, if that's the case, why didn't anyone do anything about it before? What the F? As of now, she's been suspended pending investigation. Obviously, these aren't all of the details, but this is the gist of it. I'm sure a lot of people were hoping to hear I'd sued the school for defamation, harassment, threatening, whatever else, and gotten that stupid woman fired for being a misogynistic bitch. But this is what we've got. Lol. Well, P, I'm really sorry justice hasn't been served yet, but it has to come at some point. I wouldn't relent, and if she keeps pulling this kind of crap, I would go for bigger. Until then, here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks so much for sharing and take care. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user OpenMobile2057. Am I the a-hole for not apologizing for withholding financial support until my son passed his paternity test? I, 55 male, have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. My son is my oldest, and up until recently, I thought he was a decent man. Unfortunately, my daughter-in-law Tessa, 32 female, fake name, showed me that I was wrong and revealed to me that the reason she was divorcing my son was because he cheated on her multiple times and gave her an STD. She made a social media post with pictures of text messages and showed video recordings of messages he left proving her side. I was shocked, and when I confronted my son, he said that she was over-exaggerating and that the only reason he did it was because she wasn't putting out. Tessa gave birth to their second child 7 months ago, and their first child is 3 years old. I apologized to Tessa for my son's behavior and then yelled at him for being so selfish, intentionally hurtful, and cruel. I did not hide or downplay my disappointment and was only silenced by my wife's defense of our son. I remember how hard it was when my wife had our second daughter and couldn't believe she didn't have a shred of sympathy for Tessa. Tessa is a sweet and smart person, and she didn't deserve what our son did. My wife has been letting our son stay in our house despite my wishes, saying that he needs our support, but I say he's in need of a hard lesson. We fought about this constantly. Eventually, my son accused Tessa of getting the STD from someone else and demanded a paternity test. I knew these claims were BS and saw red. I yelled at him for it, and his mother came to his defense and told me a man had every right to know if his kids were his. I countered with demanding a test of my own, and my wife was offended and I moved out. She and my son sent others after me and either lied and overplayed what things were like at home, and I just got tired of defending myself. I was going to let things be until either my wife or son contacted my job and made hurtful accusations about a female employee that I've been mentoring for the past year, and that's when I snapped. I'm filing for divorce. The house is paid off, so I'm willing to let her have it. But until a judge says so, I've stopped putting money in any of the accounts that she has access to and only make payments to the credit card with the $4,000 limit, so she has money to buy groceries, get gas, and pay for her other expenses. I've also changed my main beneficiaries to my daughters and told my son if he wanted a single cent of my money, he'd have to take a DNA test. He later did and he passed, and I responded with an email acknowledging that he was my son, as well as a copy of a re-updated will where he will receive 10% of my assets. My wife and son are demanding a public apology, but I don't feel like they deserve it. Am I wrong? Okay, there's a lot here, OP, so let's tackle each at a time. 1. No, you're not the a-hole. 2. Your son is a scumbag and an a-hole. 3. Your wife is delusional and an a-hole. With all that out of the way, those 2 idiots also defamed you. They went and tried to get you fired by making crap up. And that's not just going to impact you, it's going to impact the other person involved in this thing, that mentee you mentioned. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I get the impression that's liable. And also, why are you gonna let her keep the house? She tried to destroy your life just because you used her logic against her. No, OP, you're not the a-hole, but I wouldn't sleep on doing something about what she said at your job. That thing is inflammatory and can end up really bad. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Careless Image 885 says, not the a-hole, but get your half of the house. Get a really good divorce lawyer. Document. Be Environmental 6299 says, OP didn't make social media posts. The daughter-in-law did because her husband was cheating on her and gave her an STD. OP didn't make things public. His wife and son did when they told other people lies about him and contacted his employer. I think asking for a paternity test was a bit over the top, but the wife and son sound like 2 awful peas in a pod. Don't blame you for divorcing her. They are both a-holes. Hopefully, you can maintain a good relationship with your daughter-in-law and your grandchildren. Striker C13 says, why would you give an apology to people who, for the cheap seats, tried to ruin your life. Accusations like that at a job can destroy a career and, depending on how bad they are, do worse. Frankly, I wouldn't apologize and I wouldn't be paying that card either. She wanted to ruin your career. She clearly can find the money to live off by herself. Throwaway Dumbo 1 says, "You are a great man, definitely not the a-hole. But don't just give her, your narcissistic wife, the house. Also keep records and evidence, and please take care of Tessa and the kids as their granddad as much as you can while you can." And Opie responds, "Honestly, I'm not in love with the house and wanted to move and downsize anyway. Plus, if she gets the house and sells it, then that could be less I'd have to pay later on." Vickers says, "Not the a-hole. Your wife and son are cut from the same cloth. They are both a-holes. Your comment about wanting a DNA test was just a fair response to her defending your son by saying a man had every right to know if its kids were his. You just showed her hypocrisy there when she became offended and kicked you out." I have no sympathy for cheaters or their apologists. If this is the stance your wife is taking, then she can have your son while you divorce and move on. One of them tried to mess with your career as well. I don't blame you for withholding money from your wife until the settlement. I think you're being overly generous by giving your son 10%. I would give him nothing, but name his kids as heirs to your will. They also deserve no apology. And Bean1213 says, "Not the a-hole. And even if your son is yours, your wife's actions are telling me she has cheated in the past, especially accusing you and your co-workers of exploiting your mentee. Also, please check on Tessa. Let her know you're there for her and your grandchildren. She sounds like she needs all the help she can get right now." Opie's edit to add, "Just to be clear, since people seem to be skipping over it, but my wife called my job and accused one of my mentees of getting special treatment in exchange for special favors from me and other men in the company. She made such a big public stink that HR is investigating and my mentee is considering leaving due to the embarrassment and stress, not to mention the damage to my own professional relationship." The community agrees that Opie is not the a-hole, and we can see that the professional damage is already done. So let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Because I still see a few people writing "update me," I thought I'd give a little update to the chaos that is my life. In short, the young woman who I was mentoring talked to HR, is leaving the company, and will be suing my wife for defamation. Well done. I am also being pushed to leave. Despite HR clearing me of any wrongdoing, a lot of people in the office just give me dirty looks and or keep their distance. I've also gotten a lawyer. She feels confident that because of evidence of my wife's blatant attempt to sabotage my reputation at work, I can just give her a lump settlement instead of alimony. My lawyer also agrees with a lot of you in regards to not just giving my wife the house, but rather sell it and split the profits. I'm back in the house for now, per my lawyer's advice, and it's pretty miserable right now. Definitely drinking a lot more than I used to, just trying to hang on. I've also had some hard but honest conversations with my daughters, and I have come to accept that there are certain aspects of fatherhood that I failed in. I did show up to school events and spend time with my children, but overall, I let my wife do the majority of the parenting, and she favored our son. I just never really paid much attention, and my daughters didn't feel as if they could talk until now. However, they're still willing to have a relationship with me and are on my side with a divorce. I haven't spoken to my daughter-in-law much, but she did send me a thank you text for standing up for her. Thanks for reading. Well, Opie, it sucks, but at this point, there's nothing you can do to change the past. What's done is done on your end, on her end, and on his end. All you can do now is take the learning, make the changes, and apply them to your life today. And I'm sure your daughters and grandchildren are going to benefit from it greatly. So here's wishing you the best, Opie. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a quick mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Lel Ketlin Hentis. Fix it now! You got it, boss! I was working in a hotel in the UK as a lobby boy. My afternoon job was to handle guests' requests for extra pillows, blankets, etc. The system worked like this. The guest informed the reception, the details were written in a notebook, for example, room XY pillow, and every so often I checked the book, solved the problems, and ticked them off when done. One night during dinner, the hotel boss wrote a note in the notebook. Room XXX, hot water tap is not working. I went to the room, checked it. Yep, not working. I went back and wrote in the book. Can't fix it. Call a plumber. On my next round, there was a message. Fix it now. Underlined 3 times. Well, I went back to the room, checked the hot water tap again. In the UK, there are 2 taps on the sink. One for cold and one for hot. Still couldn't fix it. I tried a few things. Somehow the pipe, the one from the wall to the sink, popped out, and boiling hot water started pouring onto the floor at full force. Panic mode on. I grabbed the room phone and called reception. Busy. So I sprinted through the hotel. The room was on the farthest side. Jumped into reception and shouted, "Room XY, plumber now!" Then I rushed back to the room. The water was still gushing out at full force, so I just sat at the edge of the bathtub, holding the pipe so that the water poured into the tub instead of flooding the floor. After about 3 minutes of this, the hotel boss peeked into the room, went pale, and ran away. 5 more minutes passed. Then, the fire alarms went off because of the steam. Fortunately, the staff already knew what was happening, so they told the guests it was a false alarm and didn't evacuate the hotel. Another 10 minutes later, they finally shut off the water supply for the entire wing of the hotel. A plumber arrived and fixed the tap in 3 minutes. Now came the fun part, cleaning. Surprisingly, there wasn't much water in the bathroom, considering the tap had been gushing for over 15 minutes. So I went 1 floor lower to see where all that water had gone. I entered the room's bathroom, switched the light on, but it was very dim. That's when I realized the bowl-shaped lamp covered on the bathroom ceiling was filled to the brim with water and the light bulb happily sitting inside it. Oh crap, light off! Drained the water from the lamp cover, mopped up the bathroom too, but still it didn't seem like enough water for what had happened. So I went even lower. Below that bathroom on the ground floor there was a corridor, luckily not another room. But the ceiling had gotten so wet that it collapsed. A 2 to 3 meter section of it had come crashing down onto the carpet. After 15 minutes in a sauna-like bathroom, 30 minutes of cleaning and clearing the rubble, I finally stepped outside for some fresh air. That's when my roommate walked past, took one look at me and asked, "Did someone puke on you?" Since then, whenever I say I can't fix something, they actually believe me and call a professional. Wow, OP, that is a very expensive lesson for them to learn. But you did warn them, OP. Thanks for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.